My name is Derek Newborn. I'm a life transformation coach. I've had quite the journey from childhood abandonment issues to being a successful fitness model, rock bottom of suicide attempt in mental hospitals, to now being able to essentially help women that have dealt with the type of man that I used to be.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trevor Zalstra, and this is your One Moment podcast with Kevin Odom, my co-founder, and we have Derek Newborn, and he's coming up with us on this podcast episode out of Ocala, Florida.
That's right.
And we're just honored. We're glad you could be with us today, and we're looking forward to another good episode of One Moment at a Time. And Kevin, do you have anything to say?
Hey, listen, I always got things to say, dude. My magnificent brain won't let me be quiet. No, I appreciate it, Trev. It's a privilege and an honor being here, man. And I'm definitely grateful to have Mr. Derek here to join us and talk about mental health, man. Like there's so many things, mental health continues to be, there continues to be a stigma in the mental health world, and that includes substance use, suicide prevention, suicide awareness. There's this huge stigma still surrounding people, and people need help. So, I don't want to spoil the story, okay? Because the young man is on here, and I say young because I'm getting old, okay? The young man is on this podcast with us. Over what I've read about him and what he's already kind of shared a little bit to us before we got on here, I am humbled. Okay. I am extremely humbled. And if I get tearful during this episode, it's just because I am passionate about what we do. I enjoy what we do. I have never teared up. Well, probably, I don't know. But I'm not going to spoil anything regarding this man, but I want to hear him introduce himself. His name is Derek Newborn, and yeah, go ahead and take the bull by the horn, sir.
All right. Well, like you said, my name is Derek Newborn. I'm a life transformation coach, and I've had quite the journey from childhood abandonment issues to being a successful fitness model to rock bottom of suicide attempt in mental hospitals to now being able to essentially help women that have dealt with the type of man that I used to be. The man that was unhealed, unaware, unacknowledging the childhood abandonment issues. And it was those issues that created so much self-destruction in my life where I caused a lot of pain to the people that I loved, which end up bringing destruction to me personally and almost losing my life over it, and years of mental health issues, years of depression, years of substance abuse. And through my journey, I've been able to break it all down and understand where it all started and realize that I wasn't a broken person. I wasn't a bad person. I just had things that I had no insider knowledge, things that nobody ever taught me and things I never knew. So now I've made it my purpose on this earth to help others understand the exact same thing and hopefully steer them away from the darkness that I went through.
Absolutely.
I fully related to some of the things that you talked about and find it very kind of discontenting in a sense that, gee, maybe I think I could have some issues that I'm not dealing with as well. How did you know, Derek, how did you know how to begin a real full assessment of your own self? Where did that start?
So I realized I essentially looked around and I'd caused so much destruction, so much lying, so much cheating that pretty much everybody had walked away from me. Right. And for the most of that time, I found myself essentially pointing the finger out and being like, how could they do this? How could they leave? And I was always pointing the finger. But when everybody left and I was just sitting there in all the rubble, it became clear to me that the common denominator in all this was me. So I was like, well, wait a minute here. If I'm the common denominator, if I'm the root of all this destruction that I caused and created, that means I can still create, and I can create something completely different. I've already proven that I can create whatever it is I'm looking for because I just did that. So it allowed me to take ownership of myself from that moment forward. And by taking ownership of it, now there's nothing that really anybody can tell me that I don't know about myself, right? I don't have anything else to hide, right? So it helps me to start releasing some guilt and shame, not to let myself off the hook, but to help myself understand that I am in control and I do have the ability to create whatever it is. So just seeing that I was a common denominator allowed me to have extreme ownership. And then from there, it was like a new level of freedom. Doesn't mean I was proud. Not bragging about things I did, but I was able to look at it and kind of put it over here on the side. And now that I had ownership, I could start to dig into that without self-criticism or self-judgment. So it was really just me realizing that I was the common denominator in all this mess.
Okay, well, I like that. I like the introspective ideation of developing ways to really assess yourself in a positive manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a curious thing because people tend to kind of stigmatize these things or these behaviors, or
Yeah.
maybe seeing you in a negative light, even if you're the type of person that have the characteristics and capability of being a positive influence to everybody, you're still viewed as being something negative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just disturbing because unless you fit into the right group of people or have the right connections or have the money or whatever, unless you fit the bill to everybody else's level of what they want or expect, then you're a negative thing. And I don't like how
Yeah.
society in different areas of relationships can have such a bad negative impact on a person. You get them to thinking so hard to the in their own mind. They're like thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? What's really
Mm-hmm.
going on? So how, for me, the best thing for me to describe the idea of getting introspective with yourself, how come that had to get you to a point so far down until you were able to recognize it?
Well, I think, I essentially, I had to hit the ground running at like 6 or 7 years old when my dad got sent to jail, like the first experience of abandonment. And so from that moment forward, I didn't really have a choice to like self reflect or even understand or even have a say in what was going on in my life. Right. And if you pick that up at such an early age, that's kind of how you're going to operate. You're going to feel like you don't have a say, right? And you're going to constantly try to fit into whatever the situation is, other people's perspective, other people's opinion, whatever it may be, right? And when you're doing that, all you're doing is mirroring the exact pain that you went through. So every time you're trying to fit into somebody else's thing, you're abandoning yourself. You experienced abandonment at childhood, and that leads up to adult life. And so, like, I tell everybody, like, whatever your quote unquote self sabotage or struggle is right now, all it's doing is displaying the unhealed trauma that you haven't faced, right? Just like mine was obviously the abandonment. What did I end up creating? Complete abandonment with everybody leaving me in my adult life, right? And so it also helps because now when you have that understanding, when you see people that are, self-destructing or in pain or causing pain, and you see how they're going about it, you can actually identify where they need healing within themselves. And then that eliminates the self sabotage. Whereas I feel like so many of us on both sides, whether we see somebody, we're very quick to tell them what they should do or tell them how wrong they are about what they're doing instead of starting to say, okay, this is let's look at this instead of magnifying the behavior. Let's actually go back to where the behavior came from and fix the root of the problem.
Right.
And then those symptoms go away, right? But not a lot of people have that insight, right? So we want people to fit into our perspective, and then we naturally try to fit into other people's perspective. And of course, that's just going to cause resistance and friction and more negativity and more insecurities and more self-destructive behavior.
Very simplistically, that describes to me combating against the judgments of everyone else, and you just neglect the part of the real self-judgmental things, like introspection of yourself. How can I, possibly fit into this if they're not accepting me? So I can definitely see where you're coming from with that point.
Yeah, I didn't having the modeling career, having being in shape, having the abs and all that stuff. There was no way I didn't have anybody in my life that I could go to and be like, hey, I'm really depressed and I'm struggling with this and I'm doing this stuff. I had nobody to go to because they would automatically say, what do you got to be depressed about? Or how could you be doing these things? Or it would just be faced with criticism. Right. And that's why this work is so important to me, because we all need that place where we can go to, not to be reminded of the things we already know we're struggling with, but somebody to say, let's check it out, understanding that those things don't define us. They're symptoms of something else.
So what helped you, Derek, to uncover those things within yourself? Was it just self-introspective things, or was it like a program of any kind, or what really?
I went through the process, like I said. So I'm at that point of having extreme ownership, realizing I'm the common denominator, right? And acknowledging the fact that I've once again was abandoned at whatever age, my adult life. And then all I did was just start to reverse engineer the process. Okay, from this point of abandonment, this abandonment occurred because A, B, and C happened, my self-destructive behavior. And then from there, I found my previous point of abandonment, which was through my divorce and all that stuff. I was like, okay. And then I reverse engineered it even step further. Okay, there's abandonment when I had my son when I was 16, and there was some abandonment with friends and family there. I was like, okay. And then I reverse engineered it even more, and it went all the way back to 6-year-old Derek first experiencing it. And so it was a theme that had been constantly showing up in my life. So again, it doesn't like excuse the behavior, but I can go back to 6-year-old Derek and be like, dude, no wonder you were operating like this. Like I was lying and cheating in my adult life because my main goal was to never experience abandonment again. So I wanted to make sure that I had something on the side at all times, because I had already been shown through my life that it didn't matter if you were good or bad or how much you love somebody, they would leave your life. So as much as I cared for my girlfriend and loved her, the only thing I loved more was making sure that Derek was never abandoned again.
Okay.
Right. And so when you have that reframe, it's less of what's wrong with you and more of what happened to you. And I think if so many people if we ask those people that are struggling that question, it would be groundbreaking. It would save hospital visits. It would save, substance abuse. It would save physical harm. It would save so much stuff.
And that was to ask them what?
Asking what happened to you instead of what's wrong with you. Right? How many times have we said, what's wrong with that person? Why would they do that?
Right.
Instead of thinking about, I wonder what happened to that person to make them make that choice.
You bring up a lot of great points, and I definitely would have to second what you said. I think too often we ask what's wrong. When I think the better question is, tell me what happened. There's been so many times in my field that I've worked with somebody, and we get on these emotions, and I'll always ask, I want you to just close your eyes, think about, the first time you ever felt like that. as
Mm-hmm.
far back as you can remember, very first
Yep.
time. And we'll explore every piece of that. And it's interesting because one of the things I like to do is when I'm doing that with somebody is do what is called an empty chair technique.
Mm-hmm.
And the empty chair technique, for those who are listening and don't know what it is where when you were trying to process trauma or process something that is very emotional and hard, for an example, right? Just again, an example, tell that person to imagine themselves, their 6-year-old or 8-year-old or 4, however old, right? Imagine your younger self, or imagine this person that you lost sitting there. What would you say to them, right? And it's a
Mm-hmm.
great healing technique.
Yeah.
And so, but definitely don't use it on yourself and don't use it on anybody else. Seek help, seek professional help, because it should only
Yeah.
be done by somebody who's trained and who
Mm-hmm.
understands the importance of it. But I've used that, and it's interesting to see the transformation as you have described, right? As far as yourself, it's interesting to see that transformation happen right before your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever done it, you could feel the tension, right? The tension in the room, right? And I did exactly what you were saying, right? I did exactly that, walking back,
Yeah.
right? Uh, and so you could feel that tension just rising and getting stronger and getting heavier. And then I did the empty chair technique, and you could just feel it. It was like a weight had come
You can
off.
feel the
The room
energy.
was so peaceful. It was a peaceful bliss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. You could just see, you could feel the energy do a complete change in that room. And the man literally he was humbled.
Yeah.
And
I bet.
actually he was able, get this, he was able to get sober just from off of that one thing that
I believe it.
that he has never explored, that he had never explored, never touched, all, try to push down deep down inside of him.
Yeah.
And so you're right. That's when you were sharing that, that was what I was thinking about, was carrying it back. Now it's like trying to jump into the solution without having the problem, or without knowing
E-
the problem,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're trying to mess with the symptoms. Of course,
Yeah.
like you can band-aid the symptoms, right? But the root that's creating the symptoms are still going to create symptoms until you address the root. And the beautiful thing about that technique and like the work I do is, if you think about it, like you don't have to become somebody new, no matter what you've done or what you've experienced. The person you're seeking has been there the whole time. It's just way back there from that first point of trauma. Because sometimes we get overwhelmed and think, oh my God, I'm doing all this work. I got to do all these new things. I got to become this new person. No, we just have to set down all this stuff. And when you take that costume off, that person's there. They've been there this whole time. And then that also,
Mhm.
at least in my experience, it makes it a little more tangible for them. Like they're like, oh, it's already there. There's nothing I have to discover about myself. I just have to understand that none of this was mine to begin with, you know?
Does anyone else have that one tool that makes building a website a breeze? In an era driven by digital change, WebHash is the indispensable tool that holds the key to effortless website creation. Create websites that endure, defy censorship, and bypass any single point of failure. As cutting-edge technology redefines reality, seize the power to build beyond limits. Join the Web3 revolution now and forge paths others can only dream of. Visit our site today and build your legacy. Building my own space on the web was always a grind until I hit up WebHash. Their no-code builder is my ace. It's swift and solid. It's like rocking a digital fortress that's immune to the typical shutdowns. Level up your web presence without stress. Ready to stake your claim in the digital realm? Dive into WebHash today, connect your Web3 wallet, and get started. They have multiple subscription plans, from a free version to a lifetime subscription. Check them out today at webhash.com. Most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast, helping to raise awareness to critical topics in the healthcare field. Our official website was built using the WebHash platform. Throughout the projects that the One Moment movement built on WebHash, they stood behind and supported it all the way. Sign up and start building your website today. Don't forget to visit onemoment.chain.box and subscribe to our social media channels.
Absolutely. No, 100% right. I definitely concur with that. That is a technique that I don't think a lot of people, or not, when I say technique, like trying to go back in the past and unheal, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but there's a lot of folks now in the healthcare field and in the life coaching field
Yeah.
Who disagree with going back and trying to figure out, stuff and trying to solve it or put a solution on it or understand it or whatever. And I get it. It might work for some people. But for those who need it, like, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to go back for sure. Because you never know what could happen. Right.
Yeah.
So when did, you mentioned, right, growing up abandoned and stuff like that, and becoming a father in your teenage years.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
You also mentioned a lot of things, right? I mean, there were so many things to
Threw a
unpack,
lot out there.
right?
Yeah.
I guess let's start with fatherhood and substance use, right?
Okay.
When did you start using substances?
In my late 20s and early 30s. So kind of when I was living those two lives of lying and cheating, and then
Okay.
also having like that quote unquote successful life.
Okay.
I
So
would take
go ahead.
prescription pills and just literally try to take myself out of the world and pass as much time as possible because I was so miserable. I didn't want to like experience. I just wanted to pretty much knock myself out and completely just bypass as much time as possible on this earth.
Okay. So, and I'm gonna come back to that. Do you feel
Yeah.
like do you feel like fatherhood at a young age, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that impacted your judgment into using drugs?
It was definitely coping mechanisms. Again, I feel like I just hit the ground running at such an early age, and then the childhood father thing. You don't.
No.
There was no time for me to even like address, acknowledge, observe
Mhm.
how I was feeling, what my mental state was. It was go, 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 like treading water, surviving, keeping everybody afloat. Right. And if I did look at myself, didn't like it. And so
Hmm.
the easiest way to fix that is to just take some substance, feel, and just numb it all, numb it all. You don't have to deal with any of it,
Right.
you know?
Right. And it's that feeling that we get when we use that
Mm-hmm.
keeps us going back to it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of whether it's pleasurable or not. I just don't have to have that other
Have to
feeling.
deal with it. Yeah.
Right. I don't
Yeah.
have to have that. I don't have to deal with me. I get to deal with
Exactly.
life, and I can understand life better, and I can understand relationships. So what do you feel like, since it was your late 20s that you started using substances, right? Tell us about that. Like, what was that? Because a lot of people we talk to, they start off in their teens, or they start off,
Mm-hmm.
even 8, 9, 10 years old. You were
Sure.
fortunately and unfortunately late 20s,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, tell us about how that process got started for you.
Um, well, my mom had battled with depression and depression meds for pretty much all my all my life. Xanax and stuff like that. And so I just assumed naturally that was the what you use to quote unquote get better or feel better. Um, and so it started off with just like casually taking, like a Xanax to relax, or like that. So doctors say just take the Xanax, take this, take that, whatever it may be. And so at beginning, it wasn't to like knock myself out. It was just what I thought it was supposed to do. And then when you feel the effects of the Xanax and like, oh, this is like, I don't have to worry about anything, then then you just start taking, it becomes a crutch almost. And before you know it, you're wanting to spend more time on the substance than in real life, right? And the more time you're in the substance, the less time you're controlling your life, less you're interacting in other people's lives. Like my son's life, I wasn't very active because I was focused on medicating myself, right? So then you have a stronger connection to that substance, right? Than your own family in my case, and then like how do you even get off of it? Like if what I mean, the only thing is if you get off of it, you got to deal with all this shit. You got to realize what's going on. So like there's no like it's hard to find the benefit, right? What's somebody going to tell you you should get off this because what? Right? There's no potential glaring upside when you're in it to come off of it. Why would I come off of it? Everything's fine on the outside. I can just keep going like this. Right? And we get in that trap because it's hard to see the upside, and we can always validate like this is what you do. Look, when you're depressed or you have issues, you can take these pills. The doctor said it's what you're supposed to do. There's nothing wrong with me. Right? And then before you know it, how many years have passed and you didn't even realize it.
And how many years have passed and you're still taking meds and you're still seeking that solution or not seeking that solution. Either way, you're still seeking something.
Yeah. Right. Because there's nothing on the other side. I still have yet to see somebody be like, if you stop taking this is the positive side effect. Right. Because at that time, I didn't know everything I know now. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. And I think that's a glaring issue is being able to show somebody the benefit of getting off something that keeps them safe.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. It is about, I think the 5 stages of change is very important because to get them from stage 1 or 2 to a stage 3, right, which is preparation, it is about having them acknowledge to some degree, right, to say even a minuscule degree is, wow, change might be beneficial.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. So I agree with you 100%.
It's a small step, but it's a big step in a way of like, how do you actually get somebody to that step? Because that looks different this person.
Yep, absolutely. And this is for the audience to understand. Okay. So, and this is a question I would ask as a clinician if you were sitting in front of me, but I'm not, again, on our show, we don't do any like clinical therapy, of course, right? This is all educational and informational only. Before our audience, so you've already said, that in the beginning you would take Xanax, right? And then it would be to relax. Yes, I feel great. I'm relaxed. I'm cool. At the end of your benzo use, right? At the end of your benzodiazepine use, what was the amount you would take on the average daily basis, or what was that amount taken? Because I want people to understand. And how old were you? And the reason I'm asking, I want people to understand there's a difference in the beginning of addiction versus the end of addiction.
Yeah. At the beginning, it was like one, every 2 weeks or something, and then by the end, like on a Friday, I would take 3 on Friday and, just kind of like zone out and pass out for 6 or 8 hours. And then I would get up long enough to quickly realize the situation I'm in, take 3 more. Sometimes I would take 6 to 8 and just be gone the whole weekend. And it would, there's been times where I couldn't find enough to take. Like, well, how much I would just, if I woke up, that means I need more. I need more to get me to Monday morning, And again, you don't even put into perspective whether I'm taking 1 or I'm taking 6. This is just how much I need. you know? And then before you know it, it becomes the main focus. If I can't take it right now because I have to work, I'm focused on making sure I have them with me so that I can take them when the time comes. So then you're spending less time, again, doing your life, and you're either focused on getting them, making sure you have them, or taking them. And so, like, eventually now that consumes you. And once again, you're abandoning yourself for the sake of these things. These things are greater than spending time with my son. These things are greater than me helping my mom out. These things are greater than me helping my clients, whatever it may be. And it becomes the main focus. And then I was always able to validate it because I could just be like, oh, look, I'm still like operating Monday through Friday. I'm still doing my job. I'm still doing things. And so now at that point, now your expectations of yourself are way lower. So now I'm taking all those pills and I've lowered my quality of life. And those things you don't see until you get to this side or you get to the other side, right? Like, how do you tell somebody that's too much or that's not enough, right?
That makes complete sense. And that says to me that the next part of it had to be a point where you're able to realize that you had a problem of your own. And did you realize it on your own, or was it actually a diagnostic thing where somebody said, hey, you're a narcissist and you need some kind of help with that? Was it a self thing, or did you have to, like, you were diagnosed as a narcissist?
Well, I'm a self-diagnosed narcissist. There's levels to it. I never did like, physical abuse or like mental abuse, just narcissistic on the way in the sense of manipulating people by telling them whatever they wanted to hear so I could get whatever I needed and just disregarding their thoughts or emotions. But to get to the point of your question is, my suicide attempt, when I recovered from that, part of my suicide attempt, what led me to the suicide attempt was the substance abuse. So I know that if I continue that, it's most likely going to lead. I already see where it's going to lead, right? And so come out of this suicide attempt, understand that previous life and everything that entailed clearly leads me here to this rock bottom, right? And then once I have that ownership that we talked about, okay, so I can't have like any of that stuff around. The behaviors, the abuse, I can't have any of that around. Because that, if I eliminate those, that at least gives me a chance, even if it's a 1% chance. That's all I need, because I already 100% know how that old life goes and where it leads. So I'll take this 1% chance and start to figure it out. And then from that, it just got switched over. I got put on depression meds. And they didn't work for me in the sense of, like, I had to take them each morning. And so when I was at rock bottom trying to figure myself out, I'd wake up each morning, oh, I got to take my depression meds. And then in my mind, what would happen, I would literally look at them and then I would just start to replay why am I on depression meds? Oh, because you messed all this up. Oh, because you tried to kill yourself. And then that just put me into deeper depression by taking the meds, because it literally just highlighted everything else. So when I cut all those out, it kind of like removed the trigger of what the depression meds were actually trying to solve. It just made it worse in my mind. So it just made sense for me to cut it all out. And then at least I can hang on to this 1% chance of creating a different life.
That's a scary thought process down into a real deep down rabbit hole. Here on the One Moment Podcast, we do like to recognize that there are issues that everybody has, and we want to recommend that if you're in the audience and you're having these types of mental issues and you're experiencing these self-harm things, that there's a number you can call. That 988 number is nationwide, and lots of other countries worldwide where you can get the help that you need, because we are not a place that gives any clinical
Yeah.
professional advice. This is for informational purposes only, but we do highly recommend that if anybody is going through issues that are similar to this and they're thinking about self-harming themselves, that we highly encourage you to please reach out for the help that you need and utilize the NAT 88 number. And
Yeah.
Derek, I guess one of the biggest things that is a problem with a lot of people in their mental state of thinking is just, where do you go to properly begin that process? That's why I asked her the earlier question was, how did you know where to begin? And
Mhm.
what things did you go through that put it to the point that there was no going back, and you knew that you had to make a turning point right now? Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're either going to hurt yourself again, or you're just going to give up and die, or
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
complete life
Yeah.
your complete life was such a disaster. I mean, I don't know what to say
Yeah.
other than what I hate to have
That's
you
fair enough.
describe your low
Yeah.
point, but it is a low point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just touch on what you previously said. I'm not saying that people should not take depression meds. I'm just giving my experience from. There's people very close to me that take depression meds and all that stuff. Um, and I will say, I've tried every aspect and every modal of getting help to get to this point. Everything from traditional therapy to rapid eye movement to shock therapy to I've gone to like couples retreats as a single person to try to understand things. I've gone to like church retreats. I tried every aspect, and some of them didn't help me at all. But the reality is they did help me because it gave me more insight on what wasn't beneficial and what I actually did need. So I say that because I want the audience to understand that just reach for help. It's no matter how it ends, whether it's not what you're looking for, it's still one step towards the right direction. The only way to go about it is to actually go about it. Right. And so that's what I did. I mean, we could spend 2 hours talking about all the things that I tried. Right. But to answer your question, it was after the suicide attempt that I had another, we'll call it like a downfall that got me in the mental hospital. And while I was in the mental hospital, again, it was me in there. There was no more running. There was no more hiding. But in the mental hospital, I quickly realized that you don't get to decide when you eat, when you sleep. You don't get to listen to music. You don't get to decide what you watch on TV. You don't get to do any of that. And so that became glaring obvious. And it was obvious that I was still on the earth. So the more time I spent with that, I realized that I'm here for a reason, right? And pretty much at that point, everything had been stripped away. Obviously, my choices, but everything from the past leading up to that moment had been completely stripped away. There was nothing left. And it was almost like returning back to the moment I was put on this earth. I didn't have anything, didn't have choices or anything like that. And so I quickly realized that every time I open my eyes, I have a choice to make a chance. I have a chance to make a choice to make a change. And that's what I literally held on to. So every time I open my eyes, I have a choice. I can make any choice I want. And I know from my old choices what the results of those are. So I just started making the opposite decisions that I used to. Right? So, if I want to take a Xanax, okay, I need to get out of my house and go do something. Or if I want to self-sabotage, I need to do the opposite. If I want to do this, I do that. And I just started doing the opposite. And it started creating those little glimmer of hope, right? And when I was getting out of the hospital, I had the ability to go stand in the grass if I wanted to, right? If I was depressed, I can still turn on the TV and watch something. I can still go get something to eat if I wanted to, right? And it's those things that the substance and the mental health take away from us, is us forgetting everything that we have, because all we can see is all this negative stuff and all these struggles, right? And so the mental hospital was the biggest turn because it made me realize everything I had. Being able to stand in the sun and feel the sun, right? Those are all things we take for granted. I could have did that every day, but instead I was passed out on my couch, right? And I say that because I want everybody to understand it doesn't matter where you're at. You have so many abilities and opportunities, even with everything that you're going through. And so don't let it get to the point where all those things have to be removed in order for you to realize them, because they're right there in your present right now. So if you are thinking about, tonight I'm going to take some pills, or tonight I'm going to drink or whatever, before you do that, go for a walk or watch a movie or do something. It's just, that'll give you a 1% chance to do something different. And it's those compounding 1% chances that after 99 of them, you're almost at 100% of having a different life.
Does anyone else have that one moment where everything feels too overwhelming to handle? Fortunately, there are therapeutic resources where you will learn the skills necessary to bring clarity and focus amidst chaos, making everything feel manageable again. At Mindfully Me Counseling, we guide you towards clarity and calm with personalized therapy. Embrace your self-care today. Visit mindfullymecounselingplc.com to learn more. We sponsor the One Moment podcast. They meet weekly to discuss critical topics related to mental health, raising awareness on various topics such as substance use, suicide, trauma, family, and more. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about the podcast and to be connected to additional resources. Subscribe to their social media channels for more information.
Keeping it simple. I like that expression. Yeah. I really, really do. So I guess another question for me to ask you would be, have you ever heard of a symptomatically covert narcissistic person?
I think so. Give me more context.
Could you describe what it's like?
You cannot incriminate yourself, Trevor.
No.
I'm not editing anything out.
Right. And the reason I ask that is because a person who depends upon your reactions to base their reactions on, and they do it in such a way as that it's not so discernible. How can you assess that other person so that they can discover that within them? And I know that I've even seen on several episodes of other podcasts who are very well-known people that they say with a narcissist that there's no cure. You have to run away from them.
Oh, yeah.
You have to remove yourself from their presence to save yourself. So if it's an individual that has a developed pattern where they just keep engaged to the same things that they always do, and that's what they know, how can you help them in the sense of discovering that within themselves?
Yeah. So there's a few aspects of narcissism that a lot of people don't like to hear. Number one, I've been told to my face that narcissists, they can never change. Right.
Right.
Number one, I hear you, but all I can do is share my story and tell you where I'm at.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And so that's all the proof I need that narcissists can change. But number two, right, how often, whether it's somebody that, has some type of substance abuse or whatever, do we ever go to them and be like, you're screwed, you're never going to change, this is you, right? We would never do that. But when it comes to narcissists, people are so quick to just write them off. That's it, they're done, they're screwed, right? That's just who they are, right? But people don't realize no one's born a narcissist, right? Certain things have to happen for somebody to develop those skills, right? There has to be a reason why we develop any skill, right? And so if narcissists aren't born, something has to transpire, right? But also, people have to fuel a narcissist in order for the narcissist to continue, right? So a lot of times people that are experiencing narcissism from their partner or whatever get wrapped up in the acts of the narcissist instead of looking at how their actions are fueling the narcissistic behavior, right? Like, for instance, with my girlfriend, right? My lying and cheating, if I got caught because of her own issues, she would figure out a way to understand, or, we're going to work through this, we're going to do it. All that did subconsciously was confirm that what I was doing was okay. I had no reason to change, right? Whereas if the moment my actions didn't line up with my words and she cut me off, I don't have anything else to go off of. So I can either change or I can move on from her, right? And obviously some people will just move on to the next victim or whatever. And so I say all that because if you can look at how you're fueling the narcissist, that puts you in the same place I'm talking about, of having extreme ownership instead of constantly being at the mercy and understanding. The more you have ownership of it, the more you can see your role in it. When you can see your role in it, you can start to remove yourself. But if you don't see your role and just keep saying that, oh, that's how there'll always be, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're mistreating your own self. The narcissist at this point has nothing to do with it. You're just giving them the fuel to do what they're continuing to do. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does, and that's an excellent point, because it helps to focus on how important it is to have relationships that are connected. So remaining connected with that person is a critical thing, and it's just an interesting concept. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you think about all the different modalities we have with people getting help in all aspects, right? Because we believe that they can change, or they believe that they can change. But when it comes to people that have narcissistic behavior, we don't have like a therapy system for that. Everybody just writes them up about that's just how they are, right? But what if we had the same programs, the same stuff for the people that do want to get help and do believe that they can change? How many people are out there saying, I want to help you, or I know you can change. Here's the process we're going to go through. Right. So you can only put so much responsibility on the other person before you have to look at yourself. Right. There's there was nowhere for me to go. There's no narcissistic counseling for narcissists. Right. But I guarantee, because I see it all the time, and I get messages from guys that are in the position I once was, where everything's great on the outside, but they're broken inside. They send me messages reaching out for help, and before I can respond, they delete the message, right? They don't have those avenues where they can just show up and somebody works with them, instead of listening to somebody berate them about all the stuff they're not proud of already, right?
Now, I do have a question.
Yep.
You say you're narcissistic. You say, it was a struggle getting help, not knowing where to get help, not knowing how to get help. Research suggests and shows that guys, when compared to women, struggle more in getting help. What all do you feel like happened? Because guys, listen, it's okay for you to seek help. It's okay for you to say, I need help. The most three important words in the English language, okay, in the dictionary, is I need help. Right?
Yeah.
What do you feel like were some of the reasons why it was so hard reaching out for help, getting help, seeking help, or even saying those three little words, I need help?
Yeah. Well, it
and especially from a male's perspective too.
yeah. Well, from like my perspective and a male's perspective, like, I mean, who are you going to reach out to? So you're going to reach out to another guy who's, let's just say, like more successful than you, who has like what you want? Are you going to have enough, humility to come to him? What if he rejects you and reminds you that you're such a loser, right? Or are you going to go to a therapist, and what if the therapist just makes you relive everything that you have already known? Like, who do you go to, right? There's nobody, you can't find somebody else out there that's going through what you've gone through, and which is why the reason I'm so transparent about my story, right? Because, like, again, I can only use myself as an example, but when you looked at my life, everything was flawless, successful in all aspects. So what if I do go to somebody and then they tell somebody else, this is what's really going on with this guy, and then everybody finds out that everything that I'm working hard to mask gets exposed, right? So it's very hard to be like, if I reach out to this person, it's going to help me, because you can't find the benefit of it, right? Whereas, like, other programs, right, you can see that when people go to this, the outcome is this, right? But where does that guy struggling with those things, where can he find a specific process that says, if you go through this, this benefit will come from it? You know what I mean? And so that's the same thing. Like, if I didn't share my story, right, there's not a chance a guy would reach out to me that's struggling, because he's only going off what he sees on the outside, right? And so by me opening myself up, it at least gives them room to think, like, oh, maybe I'm not a complete mess up. Maybe there is a way out of this side, because now I've heard this guy's story, I've listened to this guy, and he was once where I was. Okay, so now there's at least, I can face this direction. I don't have to keep spiraling. I can at least put the brakes on and assess where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And that's why
Absolutely.
I'm thinking that it's such an important thing to have a bond of trust, a level of acceptance, and a connection of acceptability or accountability between each other when you talk about that, sharing your experience, your strengths, and however you're able to hope through it to encourage the next person to recover themselves back from the mistakes made through all those bad decisions. So
Yeah.
I just know that it's something that a lot of people just try. Sorry about that. I just know that it's something that a lot of people just try to push to the side. That, hey, you're going to get through it and just forge through alone. And it's so important having relational connections.
Yeah. That's why, like, I don't have any aspect of my story that I hide, just for the fact, I mean, there's a few reasons, but the main fact is, there's not something, a guy that he can come to me with, where I'll be like, oh my God, I can't talk to you or be around you. 99% of the time, bro, you ain't done anything that I haven't done. You know what I mean? And that's what we need. I feel like we need more of, right? Because everybody feels like, they're the first person, or it's the biggest mistake the world has ever seen, right? Where there's more of us. We've all had those decisions, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've all had those decisions. And I think that's what opens the door big enough to be like, whatever I'm gonna tell this guy, he's already done himself, right? And that's what I think will really change the game, when more people that have made it to the other side have enough courage to share what it took to get to the other side, right? Because everybody wants to get better in some way, shape, or form, right? But a lot of times we don't see what it takes to get there. And if we can understand what it takes because somebody's already done it, then we can just kind of follow that, and it takes some of the pressure off ourselves of having to try to figure it out. Because that way, like, my guys can ask me, hey, when you were doing this, how did you navigate it? Now I'm giving firsthand experience, not some hypothetical, not something I read in a self-help book. I can
Right.
literally be like, bro, this is what I was doing, and this is how I navigated it.
So let's kind of do a one. I was just going to say let's kind of do a 180 spin. So with that being said, what was the concept that gave you or the idea to do a 180 and to help women with this? That's a critical
Yeah.
point, changing as well in just itself, because you had to develop a new path of attention to helping from the female aspect. So what was the change there that you were able to use to get into that?
So there's two parts that pointed me in that direction. Number one was I witnessed firsthand the damage unhealed people cause in other people's lives, right? Because of my lack of healing with my trauma, I created more trauma in my partner. And, there's so many women who have experienced some type of that relational aspect from their partner, and they take that on and they let that to start define them, right? So whether that's they start letting go of their self-confidence or worth, or things like, I'm never going to date again or whatever, right? So I had firsthand experience of how my stuff affects other people. When reality is, right, I showed up to my relationship with a bag full of unhealed stuff long before I met my girlfriend at the time, right?
Right.
She didn't realize that, right? And so that's the thing. If I can help women understand that whatever they experienced actually had nothing to do with them, right? All this stuff they took personal and chose to pick up themselves. He brought it long before. The second part of it is, when my dad had to go to jail, put my mom in a single mother situation of her, trying to figure it out, keeping her head above water, doing all those things, right? And, a lot of times, when she would find somebody and she would date, we would come home and her boyfriend would have taken everything out of the house and left us with no couch, no microwave, nothing. And so I experienced that firsthand as a child, watched my mom trying to navigate all that stuff as well. So between firsthand with my mom growing up and then with the experience with my girlfriend, I just naturally created a place for those type of women, for the things that my mom needed that didn't have access, things that could have helped my girlfriend, essentially cut me off at the first sign of stuff, so that women don't have to continue carrying things that aren't theirs. So it's kind of like it was almost like a perfect storm that put me in this situation before I ever realized it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you divulging that. That's a good point and aspect of it too.
Yeah.
Kevin, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you. The last question I asked, but you go ahead, buddy. We want to hear what you got to say too.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I ain't worried about that. Listen, we're all here to have fun, talk, learn, cut the crap, um, so I remember what I was going to say now. It's interesting because, I think it is about being vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working as a therapist, we have this code of ethic that says, when we self-disclose, what are we self-disclosing for, right? And it's different because I'm not a life coach. I don't work as a life coach. I don't work as somebody, I'm not trying to help somebody personally get sober or this, that, and the third.
Sure.
But, one of the things that I have found is when we're talking about a difference, like if we're learning about a skill, I'll say, hey, do you mind if I self-disclose real quick for educational purposes? Because and I understand the fact as a therapist and the ethical code of self-disclosure, like who am I benefiting? Am I benefiting from myself because I'm selfish and self-centered like that, or am I self-disclosing so that the client can learn? All right. But on a personal note, what I have found that saved my life, right, was somebody like yourself. And I remember this. It was in 2012, and I heard another man tell me my story
Yeah.
to a T, to
Yeah.
to a T, and I'm like, dude, if this guy can do it,
Yeah.
I can do it, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff I didn't identify with, but take that apart, right? Take that away. I'm the same dude.
Yeah.
Selfish and self-centered to the core. Like, I've done this, I've done that,
Yeah.
I've done this, I've done that. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So I agree with 100% with what you said. And that's why I'm glad we have peer support specialists, life coaches,
Yeah.
things like that, because people like yourself can do and help create change where somebody like myself in a professional setting can't.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't self-disclose. I can't, only but
Right.
to, I can come up here and tell you all the dope we did too back in the day, but
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
job, I can't be like, yeah, man, when I was out there running the streets, cause I was running with the big dog. Can't do that. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So and being vulnerable, man, like, that is just, I
Do you
think,
think
key.
do you think it would be, because again, like obviously you as a therapist, there's like guidelines and parameters that you have to work in. I'm wondering, do you think if those guidelines were opened more so that you could reach at that personal level, that would be more beneficial on a grand scale of the world of healing? Because like for me, like I still have my life coach today, and and like I said, I went the therapy routes and all that stuff, and everybody's amazing. Everybody has their place, but I knew I had to have somebody that had been through the fire and made it to the other side. Where like it was hard for me to engage and like be vulnerable with somebody who had just went through school and they know everything by the book, but they haven't had those turmoils in life, right? Like I needed somebody that was like, they've already done it all and they made it to the other side. That's how I know I can lean into that person. So I'm just curious, like if they loosened like the guidelines a little bit, or if there's like somewhere between life coaching and therapy or something like that. Or like those
So
like a retreat or something like that. You know what I mean?
no. So I'm gonna say, I'm probably say I'm about 50-50 on that. Sometimes 60-40,
Yeah.
55-45, 65-35. I think it'll depend, because I have worked with many therapists who will just, it's like they're treating the therapy relationship like an AA meeting, right? Or and it's like,
Yeah.
what if you relapse, right? Like, that patient's not gonna, and then on this, at the same token, I've seen, if a patient's using all this profanity language, right? I'm not going to use all of that profanity. I might reflect hell, or I might reflect shit or something like that. Like, I might reflect some things like that, but I'm not going to sit there and have a street slang convo with them, right?
Right.
And so I've seen therapists will literally go in there, tell them their whole life story, have a street slang convo, and it's like, and then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, dude, like, bruh, is that therapy relationship? Like, why are you making it about you? So
that makes
I
sense.
can see where it could benefit, but also I could see where it could do more harm than good.
Yeah.
Now, for me, when it happened for me, the guy was a licensed therapist. He worked as a substance use specialist, one of the best in the state of North Carolina. Definitely would admit that. I mean, he was one of the best, right? And so, and it was the treatment setting that he worked in that
Mhm.
allowed him to talk about certain things and say certain things. So I feel like that right there, there's a number of factors that go into your question. And so for me, I've seen it where it would absolutely 100% benefit
Right.
the people. So yeah, I'd say, variables. It'll depend on a number of variables.
Yeah. That makes
For
sense.
that self-disclosure, because you don't want to harm somebody, especially
Yeah.
when they're paying you to,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to have a whole friggin' 12-step meeting with your patient.
Yeah. 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 Like I always, on our very first call with like my clients, obviously by the time we're working together, they've already like researched and figured out my story. That's how they want to work with me.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
always able just to say, obviously the more transparent you are with me, the more transparent I am. So there's nothing, I'm super transparent for the sake of if you have any questions about my own personal experience or how I overcame or navigated, you can ask that. It's a two-way street with vulnerability. That kind of gives me like the freedom of if they ask for it, I'll share it with them. But again, I'm not sharing it just for the sake of myself.
Feeling lost or alone, struggling with unbearable trauma or addiction. Every day feels heavier than the day before. The weight of unaddressed emotions and problems can leave you paralyzed. On the One Moment podcast, we are aligned with the vision and mission of the Place to Heal. Founded in Sanford, North Carolina, the Place to Heal is a growing multi-specialty mental health and substance use practice dedicated to facilitating healing and personal development. Our team of compassionate clinicians are committed to providing evidence-based therapeutic interventions tailored to each individual's unique journey. We are passionate about empowering our clients to overcome challenges and achieve emotional wellness. The Place to Heal hosts and sponsors the One Moment podcast. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast and to be connected to the Place to Heal. Follow us on social media for more content.
yeah. No, and I'm grateful for people like yourself, because y'all have, y'all still have guardrails, right? Like you still have guardrails. There's things that you can do versus you can't do.
Yeah.
And that's like, life coaching and peer support specialist.
Mhm.
There are a lot of things that y'all can do that a therapist can't do.
Right.
And so I'm grateful. I am eternally grateful for people like yourself, because y'all get in the trenches where, those types of trenches y'all get in, we can't necessarily always go there.
Yeah.
With the person. So absolutely, I'm 100%, man. Y'all have a job ahead of y'all, and absolutely, my heart is and hat is off to you.
Yeah. And that's the same thing I touched on. Like anybody, do all the avenues, therapy, go out there and explore.
Yeah.
Like just go out there.
For me and my understanding, that's just the difference between a laborer and a journeyman, or a laborer and an apprentice, or a laborer and a master. So, and I've always been that guy. Was the labor aspect of it, where I do the work and they get all the credit for it. So I see there's a situational thing where you have to develop it to where you appear and express yourself as the one that's like the professional that can do the helping. So, and I didn't mean to sidetrack there, but it's kind of with my 45 years of work experience, and I've been on all kinds of trades, surveying and land surveying and topographical and land engineering, corrections, brickwork, block work, concrete, electrical, plumbing, all these things. I've always been the one that was doing the laboring part of it. And now I can't do that anymore. I'm having like a pivot in my life where I have to pursue a different avenue. And all those modalities of traditionally accepted behaviors kind of took me down some bad roads that I thought I was just doing the things like everybody else is doing. And yet I was only seeming to end up where it's hurting myself. So now that things are different and my cognitive awareness of self and the self-care process and the part of it is so important for everyday living is just amplified by what you're describing and how you've changed and took another pivot, not to just only helping men, but helping women as well. And that's a really powerful pivot, because there's so many
Yeah.
people that need so many help, whether you're male or female, doesn't matter. We're all human beings and we all need help along to accept
Yeah.
dealing with people that have these
Yeah. And
stuff,
whatever,
issues that they're not dealing with.
yeah, whatever's causing you the greatest pain or self-sabotage is connected directly to your greatest gift. That goes for anybody out there. Whatever your perceived greatest downfall is
No.
attached to your greatest gift. And that's
And that's
why
that's
that's why
amazing.
we go through that. Yeah. That's why we
Absolutely.
go through that. Because, right, if we use my story, the only reason we're having this conversation is because of all those struggles and self-sabotage and all that, right? If everything was just cool, calm, and easy, none of us would be here having this conversation, right? And so I want to say that to encourage anybody that's listening, that whatever that black hole in your life is attached directly to your gift. It's not there for you to sit in it. It's there for you to experience it, take the wisdom from it, and help another human with it.
So
Absolutely.
Kevin, let me give you the window to ask Derek how he would what he would say to everyone as a the rest of this statement. Is there a
Yeah. Well, and before we go there, okay, I've got to ask, okay,
Yep.
because I think it's critically important and it's crucial to ask. You work with a lot of people. You work with people from helping them change, and you also help victims of narcissists. Uh, as far as the victims, right? What do you feel like? Not the barrier, but what do you feel like is a moment of awareness for them, right? Like, when the light bulb goes off, when they realize, hey, I need help. What do you feel like that moment of awareness is?
The moment of awareness in the terms of like they wake up and realize that
Yeah,
something needs
yeah.
to change for
Some
themselves.
Yes, because I think it's important because there's so many women out there, whether it's domestic violence, whatever, right? There's domestic violence, a huge one, but many other types of abuse that women go through. So what do you feel like especially for the women perspective, right? Or the women's area, you feel like that area of change is for many of those women? Because I think if we can identify that, hey, if there's a late piece there, like let's try to identify things early so that you don't get abused, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I want to, that's why I'm asking is where do you think that most commonly that light bulb is, or that moment of awareness is? Yeah.
The first moment that other person's actions don't align with their words. The very first moment that occurs, right? So like if you're talking about like domestic abuse, right? So if he says he loves you and then acts differently or creates harm, that's the first light bulb, right? The moment your man tells you he loves you in public but gives you the cold shoulder at home, it's the light bulb. Whenever the words don't match the actions. Now, a lot of times we'll disregard it because we have our own unhealing, right? So if the roles were reversed, right, and me in a relationship with my abandonment issues, and let's just say I got lied to, cheated on, or even beat on, right? I'm going to find a way to negate it because I don't want that person to abandon me. Right. And so these light bulbs happen way earlier than people actually realize. We're just so blinded by that mask of that unhealed trauma that we showed up with. But if you think the moment words don't line up with actions, tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah. No, and I think that's important, man. And listen, before we wrap up with the last two questions here, again, for the audience, man, please, there is help. Whether it's help from narcissism, if you're a victim of it, if you are a narcissist and you don't realize it and you have some troubled behaviors, substance use, again, suicide, there's so many areas, right, that we can cover here, but we've covered a lot, from substance use to suicide to narcissism to victims of narcissism and everything in between, losing, having abandonment issues, attachment issues. We can carry this conversation on, but if you need help, please, yes, male or female, please seek help.
Yeah.
National Suicide Crisis Hotline is 988. That is one resource. Another resource is your local emergency room, a local crisis center. Call a friend up, call a friend up.
Yeah.
All right. Go somewhere that you trust the people.
Yeah.
All right. Seek help.
Yeah.
You do not have to be alone anymore or walk that path alone anymore. Actually, I got 3 questions for you.
Okay.
If people want life coaching or people want to reach out, what's your website? How can they contact you? Things like that. And then the last 2 questions, okay, that you definitely have to answer. For those who watch this, what is one thing you hope that they will take away? And what is your call to action?
There it is.
Okay. So, let me work through these one at a time. So the first one's how to find me, all that stuff.
Yep.
All you have to do is remember Derek Newborn. So whether that's dereknewborn.com, whether that's Derek Newborn on Facebook, whether that's Derek Newborn on Instagram, shoot me a message on there one way or the other. We'll have a conversation. Open, honest, beautiful conversation. The second question was, what's one thing?
Yep. What's one thing people can take away?
Please remember, every time you open your eyes is a chance to make a choice, to make a change. Every single time you're given that opportunity. Doesn't matter where you're at. Doesn't matter what you've been through. Doesn't matter what you've done. The moment you open your eyes, you've been given that opportunity by the Creator. What was the third one? Call to action?
Yep.
As far as?
Could be anything. What is your motivational thing for the audience to do?
Okay.
Could be anything. Like, what would you like to see people do? What would you like to see them think? Yeah.
So my call to action is write down every single thing that you tell yourself when you mess up in life. Literally write it down in list form. Once you have that list, right next to it, write the exact opposite of those statements, and you will see the exact gifts that you were given in this world. Because the negative things are direct attacks on your gifts that you're given on this world. And so if you flip them on the opposite, it points you in the directions of where your natural gifts and your purpose lie in this world. It's one of the things I do with all my clients. It's the first step.
That is a beautiful way to end a recording. Mr. Derek, humbly do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I loved it.
In the heart of the city, a vision was born, not just a piece of clothing, but a movement. Vital Apparel reflects not just the raw edge of the streets, but the spirit of innovation to bring about change in mental health worldwide. It's more than a style, it's a statement. A blend of comfort with an attitude made for those who refuse to be average. Embrace the culture, ignite your passion, and wear the revolution. Discover your new favorite piece today and be part of something larger than life. Visit our link now at vtlapparel.com to grab your next outfit. Use promo code ONEMOMENT to get 15% off your order. Why support us? The founders of Vital Apparel, Hung Dao and Alex Kozub, sought out to raise awareness, seeking to change the stigma around mental health. 5% of their profits are donated to Brain Research Foundation, furthering the research in mental health. Vital Apparel sponsors the One Moment podcast. We partnered with one another so that together we can make a global impact on mental health, substance use, and suicide, saving lives one moment at a time around the world. Help us break the stigma. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast and to connect with us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels to stay up to date on our episodes. Subscribe now. Some photos in this ad were created by Grok.